views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of alltalkradio.net.
Standing at the door, looking back at life as it's been before, holding on to things that might have been, knowing that this day will never come again, as my spirit's guiding me.
Hi, this is Laini Risto, and you are joining Soul Chat here in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're at a special time this week. We rescheduled our show from last week, and sitting next to me is Sean Wayma, Medicine Man and Rattle Maker. We've talked about doing this for a while, off and on, and Sean and I are going to be working together this Saturday. We're doing a healing ceremony together. He had the vision first, and mine followed shortly thereafter.
Yes.
Yeah. So the show today is going to be about spirit healing, the river of light. And I want to follow the format that I always do, which is to talk about, first of all, being energy healers. One of the things that's very important to me, and Sean and I have talked about this quite a bit, is doing my own work. So people who have joined in and have heard me say, what did I learn about myself last week? It is truly about what did I learn about myself. That's part of my healing. That's part of what's going on. And so last week, Sean can join in if he wants to. I don't put that pressure on my guests unless they want to. But what I learned last week is that how easily I can be distracted into the illusion of the past. I was in Canada last week at a Celtic practices training. And many of you know my sister had cerebral palsy. And during a journey, one of the things we were looking at was the power of illusion. And all of a sudden, my sister, who passed away in 1969, my older sister 5 years ago, she hadn't come to me in a journey for a very long time. And she came to me in this journey and was very clear with me that she was no longer trapped in a wheelchair. She had cerebral palsy. And that she was no longer trapped in a wheelchair, and that she was flying free. And that who was trapping her there was me. I was trapping her in the past and not letting her spirit be free on that. And because of that, I was trapped in the past as well. So what I learned about myself last week is that there are incidents in my past and in my life that they are still very much alive because I'm going back and giving them life and not letting them go where they need to go.
Illusions.
Yes.
They have no power unless you believe in them.
That's right.
That's the thing with it.
That's right.
You say illusion, it's almost in a sense like they have no power. But the thing is, you believe in it 100%. That's why you everything that you do and your decision making, guided by that illusion.
Yeah. And that is, many of you have heard, thoughts become things. That is exactly what it is, because our mind doesn't know the difference. We're looking at it through our filters and through our perspective. So that's what I learned about myself last week. Do you have anything you want to add to that? A little advice for me?
Well,
or your own learning?
Well, what I learned about myself is even this far, we tend to continue on not believing in ourselves, our intuitions. People say they're intuitives, or they have a, almost like a sixth sense. Look what I said, what happened to me with the mail.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting story.
Right away I knew that, my mail was like misdelivered. See, what happened was I lost an important package and, another important piece of mail, and I thought it was stolen. But right away when I looked at the mailbox, I just knew that it was put in the wrong mailbox. And I didn't believe that. I chose to believe what my anger told me.
That's right.
That it was stolen.
Yeah.
And deep inside, they said, no, Sean, it's in a different mailbox. You'll get it. And I kept on telling everybody, oh, this is what happened to me. I'm so angry.
Yeah, you told me.
I'm a victim.
We talked about it one night. We talked about it, yeah.
But, lo and behold, I was fasting for 2 days. And I had a knock on the door. And I almost hesitated to answer it, because I just don't like dealing with strangers. But I decided to answer it anyway. Somebody told me to answer it. And then she said, first thing she said is, your mail was delivered into the wrong mailbox. Here you go. And it was my package and all my important mail I was waiting for. So right then and there, I knew it was like almost like the Creator telling me, you got to believe in that intuition.
Right.
It comes from a divine place, a divine
That's
source.
right. That's right. Which is a great segue into the topic, spirit healing and the river of light. Before we go any farther, I would like, we're going to open it up. If somebody has a question they would like to ask Sean, because we're going to be here for the whole hour, even though we got started late. And we won't talk about why we got started late. We'll let somebody off the hook. It wasn't us this time.
It wasn't me.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So if you want to call in and ask a question of myself or Sean, it's 702-609-7626. If you're on Skype, you just type in one word, All Talk Radio. And with that, spirit healing. I think we should talk a little bit about each of us, because we're both very different in background. You're obviously from the Native American tribe, and I'm from Northern European ancestry. And so many of you know, many people look at both Sean and I and call us shamans. It definitely doesn't work with Sean, because that's not a word that came from that you're familiar with at all. And it actually, some of you have heard me say it on the show before, it's actually a word that's from a Siberian tribe that means one who sees in the dark. And the reason that it came to light was when all the great archaeological digs in the 20s and 30s were happening, and they started discovering all these cave paintings and all of the artifacts. That word came to the top, and so they brought it back along with the artifacts and whatever they found, and it kind of spread around the world. It's got a different name, this work that we do, which is, I think earlier than that it was called animism. We have to have a label, and Sean and I had quite a conversation about labels. He doesn't prefer to be called that at all. What do you prefer to be called?
Not sure. We're both doing some almost like the work of the Creator, so to speak. And what do you call that? I mean, there's so many names for it. It's all about the spiritual practice you actually engage in.
Right.
And it's all related to shamanism, so to speak. Being a medicine man. But I didn't tell anybody about it for many years. All my life, I've been immersed in it. I was trained in it since I was a very young boy.
You were like what, 5, right?
Oh, I grew up in a Native American community, like in northern Alberta, and you're just immersed in it. It is just all around you, and maybe I'm just fortunate to have that. But I grew up around the sweat lodge, different ceremonies, where the night lodges, the shaking tents, and it was just a part of our life. And us boys there would be put to work.
Right.
You get told to do something, and you get told to do it the right way, and you get watched, and you don't realize you're being trained to learning these. It's
kind of like that Karate Kid thing, right? Wash on, wash off.
Here, take this heavy rock, and you're struggling with it, and you think it's work at the time. But later down the road, when I really took on the apprentice, we say escapio in our language, but it's a helper. And you just know what to do because you've been doing this since you were very young, and you understand different meanings, different and how to do something correctly, or if it has to be done a different way because it's a different type of ceremony. But you're still doing these things. And down the road, when you're still doing it, you got on your own, what do you call yourself? Because in our community, it's like, you should go see, so-and-so, and they'll help you with this. Or so-and-so is holding a sweat lodge, let's go. But you never ever use the term, because we're humble people. This path is a path of, humbleness and humility. And doing the work yourself, you become a hollow bone. You got to empty yourself of resentments, anger, your own attachments for even for the time being, because you have to be there for the people you were praying for, working on. And if people want to put a label on that because of what you do, it's for them.
Right. People call me a shaman. I don't call myself that. We have to use something because we're telling people that we're here. We have to have a flag. And so Sean's been known in the Valley for doing the native ritual, the pipe ceremony.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I know people have called him that. In fact, when I first started talking to you, that was one of the first things you said, is they're calling me this, and I don't really...
Not comfortable with
I'm not comfortable with that term. I call myself a shamanic practitioner only as a description. so that
actually
people kind of have an idea. But I notice that people are coming to me and they say, "Oh, you're the singer. You're the one that does the healing circles. You're the singer." So everybody has a description because we have to contact each other somehow. We have to be able to communicate. But to have that label is, for me, is like being put in a box, because historically, whatever this work is called, which is connecting with the Creator,
Yes.
connecting with Spirit, whatever this work is called, there are no two of us that are alike. We have some commonalities. We go to Spirit, we connect with Spirit to get information and bring it back to this reality. We leave this reality consciously and go to the other side. But that's about it. And other than that, I'm using drum. You do drumming.
Yep.
I do drumming. You do singing. I do singing. I don't do pipe ceremony. You know,
We do rattling.
I do rattling, right? Yeah. And Sean is quite a fine rattle maker. I'm going to hold this up. I brought this. I asked him for, I work a lot with snow leopard medicine. Can you see that, Georgia? And I asked him when we were first talking, I would love to have a rattle that signifies snow leopard medicine. And why don't you talk about that process? Because I think it's interesting, because you don't just sit down and paint. I mean, there's a process you go through to create that.
I'm always in that state of prayer.
Right.
And I smudge myself, sweetgrass or sage, whatever I feel like using when I'm making my rattles. Now, when someone requests a rattle like you did, I start visualizing what they requested, and you were very specific, so I had something to go on. And I just couldn't picture that snow leopard.
I know.
It kept. I mean, even if I sketched it out, it would just not look like a snow leopard. So I started making a rattle for you, just going on what pictures I was getting, visions I was getting for you. And the first was 2 ravens, right? Then I got the tree of life, and I really like the visual that I got from it. You get the heavens in here, the cosmos, the tree of life. It's Access Monday. It's almost like the spirit road they do in the Sundance. You get the 7 suns here on his path rotation. You got the sweat lodge deep in the earth. And that's where the bear makes its den in the earth. Rejuvenates you in a sweat lodge. You got the phases of the moon and the stars, the cosmos, like the heavens, the spirit world. And this is what we all tap into when we do this. And then there's what I pictured for you. So I showed you that one day, and it seems like you really connected with it.
Well, I think you put it up on Facebook, and I saw it, and I went, "Whoa, what is that? I've never seen that one before." And so I messaged him right away and said, "Well, how much is this one?" He said, "Well, this is what I was trying to do when I was thinking about your request." And what he didn't know at that time, because we were just getting to know each other, is that the form of shamanic practice that I do is the Norse practices. And we work with the tree of life. We work with the phases of the moon and the sun, the elements, a lot. Snow leopard happens to be a power animal, an animal spirit that I work with a lot. But not, as animal spirits go, they come to you with whatever messages you need at the time. So this was absolutely the perfect rattle. I'm going to hold it up a little bit and turn it so you can see.
I thought, it's not the snow leopard. She will not.
Yeah.
It's not what she wanted.
It took me about 2 seconds to say, "That's mine." and it's perfect, and I've used it a lot. In fact, he was noticing before, it's the handle starting to turn because I use it quite a bit. Yeah.
Sign of a good used rattle.
Yeah.
It will get dirty.
Yeah.
Don't try to clean it.
No.
That's a mark of being a veteran.
If you're interested in some of Sean's rattles, it's on Etsy, right?
Just look for the Rattle Maker.
The Rattle Maker, right? And he just put a beautiful one up on Facebook, and they can find you on Facebook by just Sean Weima or Sean Weima, and that's spelled Sean Sean, and then 2 words Wei, and the last word is Mah. Right. Yeah.
You can go to Etsy.com as well.
Yeah, Etsy.com.
Look for the Rattle Maker.
For the Rattle Maker, and that'll be good. And he just put a beautiful one up of a unicorn. Which was great. Which was interesting, because I was in Canada studying Celtic practices and unicorns and magical beings, and they're all part of that practice. So it was fun to watch that come up. So back to the creativity. I think spirit, this is the thing when I was looking for the title, and I do a journey when I'm coming up with a show and ask spirit, what is it? And I knew it was about spirit healing, because that is the commonality. We both work with spirit to bring healing to others, each in our own way. And they showed me this river of light. And one of the other things that I do, being a musician and a singer for many, many years, that's what makes me unique in the way I do things. when I'm writing a song, I have this feeling like I am suddenly able to tap into this river that is flowing above my head and bring down what is needed at that time in the term of song, in the term of lyrics. And I believe that's available to all of us. Everybody has a creativity.
Like a river.
It is
Almost
like a
like a
river.
universal consciousness, that
Right,
flows.
right. So Reiki people out there just probably perked their ears up and went, "Oh yeah, that we know about that universal consciousness." So it is a river that we tap into, and we tap into it in many different ways. Some people, I would say, we tap into it with prayer. That's
Prayer,
one way.
Fasting.
Fasting was another way. Even caring about someone else, we are tapping into it in a way, because true caring that I've experienced, there's romantic love, but that true caring that spirit has, it doesn't know anger, it doesn't know pain, it doesn't know romantic love. It knows that through us.
Or time.
No, it doesn't know time.
Yeah.
And all it knows is this unconditional love. So think of a time, and I'm talking to the listeners, think of a time out there when there was a time in your life where something touched you so deeply that time, all of that went away. Anger went away, fear went away, romantic love went away. It didn't matter. It's that compassion, that deep compassion for yourself and somebody else at the same time. Sometimes it shows up in illness.
Well,
Somebody's
the
really
thing
ill.
is that even the hardest of times is love.
It is.
It's tough love, Joy and pain are almost the same thing. It's like,
It's a fine line.
yeah. I mean, you get tough love from the Creator, and it's just teaching you something that you have to learn, no matter how hard. Some people just really have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
You learn through advice, and nobody really takes advice or remembers advice. But they like to learn the hard way, and that's like myself. I learned the hard way.
Oh, it'll whisper to me. I'll hear whispers, and I'll kind of go, "Oh yeah, okay, I'll get to that." And then something will happen, and it's like the Creator says, "Okay, you didn't get it that way. Now I'm going to hand it to you in a way that you can't ignore it this time." And if you look back, and again, I'm talking to the listeners, look back to your life of what has brought you to this moment. In my case, I would say the big turn was in 2007 when I broke my leg. I was on a path of doing music in a commercial way that I'd never done it before, and I had actually told a friend of mine, they said, "What are you going to do now?" And I said, "I'm going to step into music like I never have before." 2 hours later, I stepped off a step, dropped, broke my leg, laid me up for 18 months. That was life-changing. That was a life changer right there.
Yeah.
And
Break a leg.
break a leg, that's exactly what it was. So there's many points along the way. I think we have course corrections, and we can either see them as that or see them as a horrible time in our life where it was a victim. That actual accident really changed my life. I would not be at peace as much as I am right now. And that's not saying I'm not the Dalai Lama by any means. But I would not feel the peace that I feel now had I not gone through that, because it forced me for 18 months. I couldn't go any place but inward. I couldn't get me and a piece of paper across the room at the same time. I had to ask for help. I had to be vulnerable. I got to look at all of that in a healthy way. And I think that happens to all of us in some way or another. Hard or easy, one way, So the menu of our life, I think, brings us to that river at the time. And in fact, the rest of the theme song talks about standing at the shores of the river with this new path in front of us. We never get very far in the song, which reminds me, if you are willing, you can go to youtube.com. We'll have this show up probably by about 7 or 8 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. By the time I get home and can convert it and get it on. You can watch it on YouTube. If you subscribe, you can get a free copy of the MP3, which is Here I Am, which I wrote back in 2003. I was going through a big divorce. I thought that was the transition. It was the door opener is what that was. So if you want to subscribe, you can get a free copy of the MP3. When you're working, when you're doing the pipe ceremony, talk about that a little bit. That is something that I'm not familiar. I've sat in when you've done it, but it is very much a part of your background,
Yes.
a part of your culture. We're going to do it. We'll be doing that. It'll be part of the ceremony that we're doing, 2-hour ceremony we're doing Saturday night, and I'll give you the address at the end of the show. Talk about where that comes from. It's ancient, correct?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's part of, one of the many rights we were given. We way back. You can think of it as almost like a church,
Mm-hmm.
because you have the pipe carrier or the medicine man with the pipe, and he puts it together. You know, they got the almost like two elements. You know, male
So
and female.
is that considered a connection of sorts
Yes.
to spirit
Mhm.
when you do that?
Yes,
Okay.
but it also opens up the connection to the Creator.
Mm-hmm.
You have that direct line, and through your prayers and through what chants you do, you open up the doors, and the spirits can enter and either work on you and hear your prayers. You call them in from wherever they are, and you know they're there to listen and help. But the thing is, you got to know how to pray. You can tell them, you know, they don't understand times. You got to tell them, like, you know, right now or next week, you know, this summer, you know, you're going through something now. You know, this is bothering you. The thing is, I learned is they don't really read minds. You know, that is, you know, in a sense, you think they could,
Mm-hmm.
and I bet they could, but you just really got to voice your prayer, give power to it. You know, bring it into existence with your voice, the sound, and then it's all part of the chanting. And prayer.
So I think that's interesting the way you said that. So you can think it in your mind, but it's like you don't give it
Mhm.
any unless you say the I am. You know,
Yes.
I am Laini. I'm here to. It's still just a thought in your mind, and it becomes real in your mind because that's where it is. But to bring it in action out here, is
Mhm.
that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and people do that in life,
Uh huh.
where they want to say something or they want to do something, but they never ever voice it or give their opinion or put any strength behind it. And that's the thing with prayer. You got to really think and say what you're feeling, what really is the problem, what is bothering you. It's part of the humility,
Right.
in that prayer.
Right. Yeah.
Admit that you're not strong. Admit that these things are happening to you. Admit that you made a mistake, and maybe you're ashamed or you're embarrassed. It's a big part of the carrying that weight is the ego and the pride.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the root of all evil, pride,
Mm-hmm.
and it really puts a block up
Mm-hmm.
onto what you want to express as a human being, as a spirit. You know, as the
So
observer.
are you talking about the pride of not saying anything because you don't want to be embarrassed? Is that what you're
Yeah,
talking
being
about?
strong, having a good name. You don't want people to look at you for doing something.
Okay.
I mean, you want people to know the truth, so to speak,
Right.
of you, who you are, and that's how we think of ourselves inside. Is the truth of who we really are.
I think
No.
you bring up a really good point because I noticed for me, and I've noticed it in other people through the years, different trainings and things that I've been in, when somebody says their darkest thought or when somebody says their darkest judgment against themselves, like, I'm so embarrassed because I did, and it comes especially from a person who seems like they're in control. There's a healing in that moment because they're being absolutely honest to their core.
Yes.
That truth is coming out and saying, you know, I'm angry. I'm not happy about this. I'm not, you know, or this happened to me and this is the pain that I felt, and to open that wound up and bring it into existence again so it can
Yes.
heal.
Yeah, that's like being the truth of your own existence
Right.
instead of just hiding it in false. You know, you can hide it and never tell anybody,
Mm-hmm.
and you think you're, you know, almost like you're living a lie, but you got to bring that out
Yeah.
because you're being watched all the time.
Right. And the healing can't happen until you bring it out.
Yes.
It sits there like a
Mhm.
sliver. you
Yeah,
know.
well, the thing with this kind of work is that people say, oh, you know, I have this curse on me, I got such bad luck. But they're hiding something inside themselves they have to accept and forgive themselves for and ask forgiveness for.
Because that
Or
curse
go
couldn't
on.
have been put on there. It couldn't have happened if
Mhm.
there hadn't been a wound there to be
Yes.
open for it.
And that
you know.
opens the doors, too, for more.
Right.
Piles up. But part of the ceremony is that healing, too, that prayer.
Okay.
It's very sacred. You know, it's like 4 rounds of you know, song.
Mm-hmm.
And since I'm the one who can really sing what you're going to be singing, this or
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it
Mhm.
because I've sat now in a couple
Mhm.
of different pipe ceremonies that there's this energy trade that happens, and I felt it coming, but I didn't do it. I wasn't familiar
Yes.
enough with the ceremony, so I'm looking forward to it.
And I'm just a person there praying, bringing this sacred pipe in that
Mhm.
I earned. And there's no power in me, but there is power in the prayer and the
Right.
intention and just asking to be that empty vessel.
Mhm.
What they say, the hollow bone. For me, that time being holy enough that I can do this for the people. And you never lose that. You always got to pray for that, and never lose the intention of it, no matter where you're doing it, whether it's in a strictly Native American community or you're sharing it to others.
Mhm.
you're sharing that time of prayer. You're not teaching anyone anything, but you're, in a sense, you can show them how it can be done.
The best teachers I ever had were
Yes.
models. They were mentors. Some of the best
Mhm.
teachings I ever learned were from people
Mhm.
because they modeled for me what needed to be done.
Yeah. And I kept it to myself for many years because of the politics.
Mhm.
You know, politics and spirituality. You know, it's an ugly thing.
Yeah, it's hard to make those two come together in a balanced way. I don't see it happen a lot.
But I couldn't hold it much longer. I had to share it. I knew I had to, and that's when I started offering it. You know, it just
Was there an incident that did you wake up or did you have a vision? Did you have a dream?
many dreams, and I can't go into detail with them for the
Sure.
nature of their dreams, but it's
Sure.
basically what it is we give you this for a reason.
Mhm.
Your whole life, with the visions and the beings you've encountered, have led up to this moment, and you are not walking the path fully. It says, if you do not live the life you're supposed to, you're going to come back and live it again until you start to open up. And basically that was the message. And in this council, and I knew I had to start sharing. And we're all human beings. Like I say in my ceremonies, is that in the medicine wheel, all nations of color. We can't just have a ceremony and then, you know, only allow one of those colors or one direction of the wheel in.
Right.
You know, offer that time of prayer for the people. They want healing. They want to just experience it and see it. What's hard to avoid is sometimes you might think it becomes a spectacle because people haven't been to one before.
Right, and they're caught up in the magic.
Yes.
They're caught up
Yes.
in the visual. But it is a very sacred thing.
Yes.
I've had the opportunity now 2 or 3 times, and I didn't understand until the last time that the actual ceremony starts when you're putting the pipe together, when you're opening the 4 corners,
Yes.
before anybody has walked in the room. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. 4
Yeah.
directions.
The four
Yeah.
directions, right. So we are going to be doing that Saturday night for those of you that are interested. It's going to be at Spirit Us Reiki Center, which is 3300 Sunrise Avenue, and it's Suite 102. Starts at 6:30, and we've got a crowd. We're probably already full because we have comfortably 20 people, and I'm guessing there's going to be more like 30 if you're interested. 6:30 to 8:30. Sean's going to be there. We're going to open it up with he's going to open up with a pipe ceremony. I'm going to be singing and drumming with him, and I'm also going to do part of what I do, which is real important, and we're back to the World Tree, is I'm going to do a journey with everybody so that they can go to the World Tree and connect with the Creator in that way, connect with their animal spirits or guiding ones or ancestors. I've seen ancestors show up at the World Tree. Interestingly enough, a lot of people have met a dog that they had in their past that has crossed over, and the emotion that comes up in people to see that, it's pretty hard to own a dog and love a dog and not be attached to it in this unconditional way. It's very hard to do that unless you're really blocked. I've seen that happen, but it's interesting to see them show up in people's journeys. So it should be a very interesting 2 hours. Back to the putting the pipe together, and then there's 4 rounds of singing,
Yes.
like you said. And then the one that I sat in on that I was very impressed with was the protection one. And I think everybody needed it, especially at that time. I know you and I had talked about it. I needed it. It was I was coming out of a situation where I'd done a lot of heavy-duty work, and I really needed that, you know. Do you focus the pipe ceremony, or is there a general way to do it, or do you have how does that come together?
You know, it really depends on what ceremonies you're given. There actually is a specific ceremony for everything that you do.
Okay.
Different songs that have to be sung, different rites, different, I'll say, a way for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Depending who gave it to you, like there's a big difference in who taught you, who taught them, how did they get it, whether it's from a dream, a spirit encounter, whether it's from another human being. These things will always change when they're given to you, depending how you're told to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And for the protection ceremony, that's basically that was a protection ceremony, and it was protection prayers.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was aimed towards protecting the individual, consecrating the area, you know, binding each other, protecting each other from each other, binding the outside, and sending whatever was inside out.
Yeah.
Cleaning you, mind, body, spirit.
Right.
And digging deep for whatever might have been in there too. And you guys had the different, you know, artifacts. You guys carried for yourselves. It was very specific, very tough.
It's always interesting to me when the circle forms, however the circle forms, whether there's 30 people or whether there's 4 people, it
Yes.
forms exactly the way it needs to be for those people involved. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. That the energies of those people that are there on that night or at that time are important to the other people around them, even if they don't know them. I've seen it happen so many times. Talk about, because I know there's a lot of confusion about it. Talk about that the men actually partake in the pipe ceremony is
Yes.
actually smoking the pipe, right? Can you talk about that? Why is that so? Because I know
Yes.
I've had some people say, well, the women didn't get to, and then we have the feminists come out and say, well, they, but there's a spiritual practice
Yes.
involved here, right?
Well, it's a strong belief.
Mm-hmm.
It comes due to the fact that women are very powerful beings. They have the power to give life.
Mm-hmm.
They have the connection to the Creator. For that soul comes through into the womb, and you always have that connection. The power to give life is very powerful. Men do not have that. We were given the pipe to match that, so that we have something too to cleanse ourselves. The woman on their time is a time of cleansing. We say that's a time that you're almost like a sweat lodge.
Mm-hmm.
Women have that. They're in a powerful time, and they must not be around spiritual artifacts, that belong into a medicine bundle during that time. For that reason, they might destroy something in there or nullify something in it. That is their power.
So the
time.
cleansing that they're going through may
Yeah.
destroy something in
Yeah.
that medicine bundle. Okay.
Yeah, that's why
That's
That's
interesting.
why they don't belong at ceremonies during that time as well.
Okay.
Not that they do not belong, but it's almost like
Just know something's
out
going
of respect, yeah.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
this person's carrying these sacred artifacts that cannot be around that time, and you're going to overpower that, not realizing it's like a burden for some people.
Mm-hmm.
When they're not taught this, but that time is a time of cleansing, where they should be first praying and getting that stuff off of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like renewing yourself. You're renewing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
almost like how you renew a sweat lodge every spring. You become a new person. You're making ground for new life to come in, and that's a divine thing. For men, we just have our artifacts, our drum, our pipe, and that allows us to do the same thing. We
Now,
have the sweat lodge.
Did I understand this right? Somebody told me when you first came to Las Vegas, and you came from Vancouver, BC,
Vancouver,
right?
yes.
And did you come directly to Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Of all the places on the planet, Sean,
I can't even come up with a good story for this. But
there's so many of them in this town.
something drew me here,
Mm-hmm.
and I just have to follow that.
Yeah.
It's over time, I think we'll discover what brought me here, and if I have to move on later.
Right. That's the way I feel.
Yeah.
People ask me, are you going to retire here? And I say, no, I just haven't seen where
Mhm.
else I'm supposed to go yet. I actually made the decision to move here in 2 days. I made the
Mhm.
decision 2 days later. I actually had a house because I had a person down here that put a bid in on one, and it just fell together. This is where I ended up as well. But it's a very interesting area, though, I think, because for all of the commercialized marketing that's done for Las Vegas, there's this spiritual underbelly that I run into. And I've had people tell me that they think there are vortexes here. Have you noticed anything like that? Or why do you think that is? Or is it just the nature of the desert? You have these extremes.
It could be. Of course, we know the ley lines are in Sedona,
Right.
but people feel that spirit here.
Mm-hmm.
It could be similar to them feeling like an area is sacred for some sort of reason. Maybe there is. Maybe there's history in some areas here that we do not know about.
I know this was typically the land of the Paiute.
Maybe they've opened up some doors here.
I don't know. I know that I have done some house clearing, and I think I told you about it, where it wasn't the house, but the land it was built on that had been a place where people would go to cross over. And so there was a lot of spirit waiting there to do that. Yeah.
I hear
yeah.
the Orleans Hotel is built on an
Oh, really?
ground.
That's really interesting because they just opened up a center for spiritual living inside the Orleans Hotel. Did you know that, George? So now we got a church inside a casino, which is interesting. Only in Vegas, right? So you came here and you've been here, what, 6 months, 9 months?
Since last August, I believe.
Since last August. And I've been here off and on for 10 years. I was on the road a lot. I was a professional, and still am a professional musician, but singing all the songs everybody knows in the Western culture. until probably a good 5-6 years ago. And then my life flipped. I didn't have the background you did. I consider you more of a shaman than anybody else I've ever known, because you've been raised in it from the time you were younger, okay? I've come to it later in my life, even though I look back through my life and I can see everything that led up to this moment was part of the training. Because we're really trained by spirit.
Well, more of an advantage, I guess. An example of being born into it, I suppose. I've seen people who are, the worst alcoholics. And you notice they always talk about spirituality regardless, but they change, and they walk the path of a medicine man, and they become so powerful because they were always meant to be one. They've always had that blessing of spirit with them. And
well, we all have it with us.
And that could have happened within a year or 2 or 5 years. And I think it's just an advantage I have for the situation I was born into.
Well, and from my point of view, is you were born into that situation for this time. The 8th fire, remember I mentioned it to you one day? That's something from First Nations people in Canada, right? That was a prophecy, the 8th fire. And that talks about all of us sitting around the same campfire where there's no differences, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's why I felt it was so important to do the show, because we each do something so different, but we're still working with spirit, and we're still...
Yeah. The story is we were separated back in biblical times with language and that because of the power we have when we're one. And back then it was just for wicked purposes. But imagine if we had that power for good.
Right. Yeah. The world would definitely be a different place. And I think we have the opportunity. I tend to be an optimist. People will come up and say, did you hear what happened back in the latest ISIS thing, or what happened over here? And what I choose to do is, it's not that I don't say it doesn't exist. It's not that I disregard suffering, because it is happening. But I don't want to feed that dream. I want to feed the dream of a world that's changing. Because if all of us are in suffering and pain and we're thinking the worst, what are we creating? The old shamans from across the water, they would say, what dream are you dreaming? Look at your life. And what's the dream that you're dreaming? And I don't want to dream a life full of despair and sorrow and bad things happening. I would rather dream about something else.
Yeah, manifest itself physically.
That's right.
I mean, this is what they say, the real world.
Right.
It's a sacred space, this mind. And we turn it into an imagination, a fantasy, a daydream, and then it becomes just that. When it should be a sacred space where you make beautiful things happen, sacred things, whether it's prayer, whether it's a good life for you, for somebody else. Instead, we build it to become a place where these scenarios play over, the movies, the thoughts, the chatter, until we're just so blinded, or we're just guided by this. You can go into like this ball of rage at one moment over something you just thought about.
Yeah.
Or you can be sad, or you just keep it clear.
Somebody stole your mail.
Yeah, someone stole my mail. Had to be.
It had to be. Yeah. You were talking about time. Spirit doesn't know time.
No.
I did a healing ritual for someone before I left a week ago, and I was there's a certain way that I bind the room with a staff and with a song, and we bind the energy so it closes the energy around the room. And I went to put the staff in the corner, and the staff knocked a clock off the wall and broke it completely in half. And the woman whose house we were doing it in said, "Oh, look at that! You broke time." And she and I connected a couple of days later. We could not remember what day it was. We couldn't remember what time it was. We didn't know what we were doing half the time. And she said, "I got to go buy a clock because you broke time." And she was a victim to me doing that. So anyway, we were laughing about it.
Time.
But it's interesting because time is not. Spirit doesn't recognize time.
No.
It's
for
just
us.
yeah. It
That's
is for us.
Even in punishment time.
Yeah.
It's like you worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
In the biblical times, they refer to thousands upon even billions of years of being in this change, like the angels have fallen.
Now, do you work with angels a lot, or do you see them? Do you experience them, or you just know that they're there?
When I was younger, young boy, I used to see a lot of things, and the only thing I could come up with is that they were angels, because of what they looked like to me. Being in trouble as a boy, and seeing them do something for me or save my life. And that's what I seen in my mind. I had a vision be taken to heaven and hell once, and the person that I was with always seemed to be what I can only describe as that.
As an angel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But spirits are light beings.
Mm-hmm.
They have this light form. It's pure energy. And we're the ones who are in the physical flesh. And I read a story about Adam and Eve, who were once light beings, who ate from the Garden of Eden and became what they described as animal flesh. Here I am, stuck in this animal flesh. I used to be this beautiful being of light. And now I'm animal flesh. And that's what I think about sometimes. We are in this body.
What was it I heard? Somebody, I'm sure he's going to listen to this because he follows me around wherever I go. He talks about, I'm wearing a meat suit that this time is a Philippine. Philippine meat suit is what he calls it. But we truly are. You know, we're not a body with a spirit. We're a spirit wearing a body.
Yes, exactly.
And I think in times when I get confused, there are two things I think of, especially if something's happening and I'm going, what the heck is this all about? The first thing is it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. So I'm now on a hunt. I'm now on a journey to figure out what is this bringing to me. And the other thing is that I'm a spirit wearing a body. This is not, and winter doesn't last forever, and spring comes, and summer comes, and it's not to be focusing on a point in time.
And your body's, you remember too, your mind is part of that.
Mind is part of that, and it is a mind, body, spirit. Yeah, mind, body, spirit connection. It is mind, body, spirit,
you have to realize you are the observer.
That's right.
Right. You have to say the ghost in the machine.
Yeah. Running it through my filters.
Yeah, when you're meditating, that's when you become the observer. You're observing your body, the darkness, imagery, and you're not really putting any internal commentary on it, but you're just observing your breath, the stillness, the darkness, and that's when people say they feel at peace. Because we don't have all this distraction of the physical world, right? So I've over time I've learned these things, taught myself this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think going back to, you said you probably had an advantage. I think one of the things that's happened in this culture, in the Western culture, is that there are no tribes. Our tribes have broken up. And I know that my path has felt pretty lonely, because I felt most of the time like nobody understood what the heck I was doing. And I learned at a very early age not to talk about it so I wouldn't be labeled crazy. Although I still got labeled crazy, but I mean, and I think the support, it would have been so good if I'd have had more than, I had one person, people that would drop in and out of my life that would say, oh, and I would tell them things I would hear or things I would see, and they didn't look at me like I didn't belong. But you were raised in a situation where it was accepted, and I think that's probably the biggest difference.
That might be true, yes.
You know?
Where something happens and there's always maybe a supernatural reason behind it.
Right.
That nobody dismissed.
And they didn't come along and tell you when you said, oh, my imaginary friend just told me that I shouldn't do this, and they'd tell you, oh, forget that, you're crazy. Or you just imagined it. It's not real. And a lot of people I work with now, it's bringing them back to the place where they have that imagination of a child. They're looking at it with new beginnings and new eyes. Because children come in that way. I mean, you've seen it in your own children, that they believe what's in front of them. Who knows what they're seeing until they can start telling us about it. So part of my work is that creativity. Now we're back to the river of light. Everybody can reach up into that in their own way and bring something down.
Yeah, that's pure
Yeah.
trust, love.
Yeah.
Where you
Yeah.
trust everything that's presented.
And we're more alike than we are different. I don't know about you, but that's what I keep seeing is people have healing things that they have to do. And I'm always telling people there's no way I can see it in somebody else unless I'm already working on it or I've worked on it, and that's a piece that I've pretty much finished at this point. But I can't see anything that I don't recognize in myself. It's impossible. It just doesn't happen. Spirit might have a bigger view. They might point me in a direction or show me something that is like it so I can kind of have a feel for it. But unless I'm working on it, I can't see it. Or I have to own it myself. That's the responsibility of self-healing, I think.
I think so. And recognizing the things that are in front of you.
Right.
The path, the reasons, the coincidences. You're drawn to spirituality to learn the practices of shamanism for a reason. And at that time, I think they were presented to you. You're ready.
Right. And the path is it's imperfect, but it's perfect. It's that thing that the beauty in nature is imperfect. The things that come along that we think are, and we're back to the things that are problematic and challenges, you can look at them as that this is definitely I'm a victim, or this is going to take me to a different place. This is going to take me to something that I'm going to understand that I don't understand now. It's not easy. And when you're in the middle of pain, or you're feeling angry, or somebody stole the mail, it's really hard. It's hard. And I think that the healers that I appreciate are the ones that are there's that humble again that you were talking about, are the ones that recognize they have their path just like everybody else.
Yes.
I don't feel necessarily like I've got an advantage over anybody right now. I'm just doing my work.
Yes, exactly. You are doing what you feel is right.
Yeah.
And giving the opportunity for others to come into a healing circle. You're offering that.
So what's next? You've got some, we were talking about it, you've got some acting in your background.
Yes.
And so some of you out there may have actually seen Sean and you didn't know it. So what are a couple of things you said the HBO?
Yeah, also like one of my favorite projects was Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee.
And that was the
an
recent one.
Well, the recent movie, I guess. It was made for TV movie. It was HBO about there's a book by Dee Brown, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. I was actually given that book by one of my cousins a long time ago. I was given all these books. There's Russell Means, there's books on shamanism, Black Elk Speaks. I was always immersed in this world of books just to escape my life, what I was going through.
Sure.
And funny enough, down the road, I play one of the characters in that book.
Isn't that weird how that works?
Out of the many stories, this movie focuses on Sitting Bull.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing.
So what was it like? Because that's a different tribe from yours. Because you're Cree, and that was about the Cherokee, right?
Lakota.
Lakota.
Yeah. I respect these different tribes, and when you have to learn the language, you learn it and you try to respect the language, and not desecrate it, but say everything correctly. And I think I just feel so honored to do that, to represent another character, another culture, another tribe. It's happening everywhere.
It is, whether we're in a tribe or not.
Yes.
I mean, because the United States is definitely a melting pot.
And you don't want it to become political. He's not even this. He's not even that.
Right.
But you're honoring this, and you're representing this. I mean, they don't know that when they see it, but deep inside, maybe you are. You're honoring this. You're trying to be the best Lakota you can be, the best, in whatever tribe you're playing. I don't think I've ever played a Cree.
Really?
Yeah.
You just are one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there must be some fantastic stories, though.
In terms of?
Oh, well, like Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee,
Well, you know what? Speaking of stories, I did a movie called Dreamkeeper, and that is real Native American legends spanning different tribes from, north, south, east, west, and the real Native American stories brought to life on the screen.
Now, was that done by HBO, or was it a
Hallmark.
indie movie? Oh, it's Hallmark.
Hallmark. Different stories about this young man who travels with his grandfather to a World Gathering Nations powwow, and during that time he's getting told these stories because each story has a moral, a teaching.
Oh, interesting.
It's an oral tradition, and I think in this day and age, young people have to learn that strong visual, strong acting, performance. So in a sense, I'm a storyteller, but on a different medium, not just words, but acting it out like they need to see it.
Right.
Our young generation changed so much since I was young.
That's what I was doing in Canada this last week, because I've entered a 2-year program to study Celtic practices, which is actually on my way back to my roots, because my ancestry is not Irish or Scottish or the British Isles, but it's Northern Scandinavian. It's the reindeer people. We've talked about that. And so it's kind of like I'm going back through my path of where I came from. And one of the big things this last week we focused on was storytelling. And the weaving, they call it weaving the medicine. It's weaving medicine, weaving the story and the things that have come out of it. And we would hear a story, a very old story about Bridget and some of the Celtic gods and goddesses that they looked at and looked to, and then look at it and find, where are the journeys in this? Where are the journeys that I can go to? And that's how the one about my sister came up, was in that process of, what's the illusion here? What did I believe? And is that still have life to it? So it's interesting. I think one of the common things I've read about shamanic practitioners, shamans that are worldwide, is that we are all storytellers. That's one of the medicines that we use.
Power of the mind. Dreaming.
Power, yeah. And creating that in the mind of other people so that they can learn from it about themselves.
And that's when people have to realize they're not daydreaming. So maybe they're being shown something.
Right.
They pass it off. They dismiss it. I'm just thinking of this. I'm just imagining this. I'm seeing this out of the blue. It's just my imagination.
Right.
But
They discount
for us, we don't just see something out of the blue. We're being shown something. We're being told something, whether it's that visual in the mind or they speak to us in fact. They just put a fact in our mind and we just know. They just don't really mince words.
Right.
Sometimes in visions they do, but most of the time it's just that visual.
Right. I remember sitting in Santa Fe, and I was coming through teacher training with Sandra Ingerman. And I was sitting by myself, and someone had just come and done a healing journey for me. And I was sitting by myself, and the wind all of a sudden came up out of nowhere. And this little, I know it's not a tornado, it's a dust devil, dropped down like 50 feet in front of me. And it went from here, and it just moved across in front of me, and then it disappeared, just like that. And I looked at that and thought, this is confirmation of something I just received. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to trust that this is something that came. And it wasn't big. I mean, it was only like as high as we're sitting.
It's the wind.
It's the wind. But the wind comes and brings messages all the time.
Yeah.
Definitely the other night it was bringing them when I was trying to land back in Las Vegas.
One of the beings.
Yeah, one of the beings. So it's trusting that. It's trust, again, like you said. It's trusting the messages that come to us in many forms. Sometimes I'll get a message through people, and I know it's from spirit because the air changes around their words and the sound changes. All of a sudden it's like there's dead space around it, and I know, oh, this is for me, but it's coming through somebody else. It's interesting the way we do it. So we're almost, what have we got, about 5 minutes left? Yeah, something like that. So a couple of things. I want to go back if you just joined us. Which is too bad because we've been on for a while. But this is Sean Weymouth, and he's a rattle maker and a medicine man. And this, I'm going to hold it up. This is my rattle that he made. It's the Tree of Life. I call it Tree Rattle. And so if you're interested in some of his art, and it's beautiful art, and it's original, it's authentic.
Yes.
Yeah. In my case, I went to him and told him what I wanted, and he had a vision, and it isn't what I thought it was going to be, but it's so much better. I got out of the way, and Spirit came through and said, "This is what you need." And I work with it all the time. The other thing is that I thought I'd bring these in to show you. This creativity. Whatever your creativity is, this is a CD that I wrote called Neptune Rising, and it's a song that's based on the Norse shamanic practices, and there's 3 journeys for those of you that like to meditate that you can use. It's called Neptune Rising. You can find it on CD Baby. You can find Sean's Rattles on Etsy.com. And you look for the Rattle Maker. Okay. This I brought in because for those of you that are interested, if the path is calling to you, and I do believe it calls us, called you at a very early age. I think it was speaking to me, but I didn't recognize it until several years ago what it was, the creator. Sandra Ingerman, who's my teacher, just came out with a book. Can you see that? Is that up there right, George? It's called Walking in Light. He's going to hold it up for you. This is her recent book. If you're interested in looking at the shamanic path, or the path that Sean and I have been talking about, where you're actually developing a relationship directly with Creator, for healing yourself, for helping your community, for helping your friends, for helping your family. This is a good book to start with right here, Walking in Light. It's Sandra Ingerman's latest book, my teacher of many years. She is actually going to be on the show this summer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's going to call in.
Must be excited.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
How did you do that?
Well, I kind of have it in. Called her up on her schedule. So she's coming in. Sean and I we're going to do our first ceremony together. Sean had the vision first, and like I said, and then I went, oh yeah, this is what I've been hearing and seeing This is what this is all about. We're going to be Saturday night, this coming Saturday night, the 18th, April 18th, 6:30 to 8:30 at Spirit Us Reiki Center. It's 3300 Sunrise Avenue, Suite 102. For those of you that live in the Las Vegas Valley, it's the east side of the valley. It's the 95, 93, 515, and South Charleston. It's pretty close off the freeway. It's not that hard to find.
Yeah.
So we'll be there together.
Lots of parking.
Yeah, there's lots of parking. And I suggest you come early. If you've RSVP'd, I believe we're full, but I don't know that any of us have said we're full. So I would come early if you want to come. Anything else you want to share, Sean? That's something you wanted to say? It's been really fun.
Oh yeah, it has been.
Yeah,
we haven't
we
really covered even half of what we
No.
probably could talk about.
Yeah. We start talking, and
Yeah.
usually you can find us talking on Facebook at night, messaging
Yeah,
back
just
and forth.
to reiterate that I'm just a practitioner
Right.
in what would be called shamanism.
Mhm.
I was grown into it. I was taught it from a very young age, and I've always avoided calling myself that, but I do it,
Mhm.
and I opened it up to other people just recently.
And it's a gift, and I appreciate
Mm.
it. I mean, we've developed an interesting friendship as we've moved along here.
Yes.
Just since the first of the year, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm Laini Risto. I am a shamanic practitioner and singer and teacher. We're both teachers, you know. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find me on Facebook at Shamanic Song or ElenaRistoHealer.com. I also have a website called ShamanicSong.com. And my phone number is 702-308-8464. This week, till we come back next week, I'll be back next Tuesday. This week, when odd things happen, or if something happens to you, you feel like it's happening to you, ask and listen. If there's a voice that comes and says, this is happening for you, there's something to be learned here. It may be your connection to the river, the creator, whatever you want to call it. Have a great week. Thanks for coming online, Sean. We'll see you next Tuesday. Bye.